Today we're going to be going through two fairly easy techniques that are going to help improve what your images look like. The first is going to be called a flare, and the next is going to be called sparkles. So we're going to start a new desktop, and I've already got this customized. The width is going to be 8.5 inches. The height is going to be 11 inches. You can change this between portrait or landscape. I'm going to leave it in portrait. The resolution is going to be 300 pixels per inch. The color mode is going to be RGB color, and that's at 16-bit. And then I'm going to leave the background white. I'm going to click create. Now, unlike the previous projects that we've done in Photoshop, this is not going to be augmenting the picture itself. It's going to be adding on to the picture. So you're going to start with a picture that you have established that you want to add a flare or add sparkles to. So this works really well in imaginary or fantasy type imagery. So I'm going to take a picture that I've got set up. I'm going to click enter to place. So I've already augmented this picture. This is a picture of myself. I put some trees in here. I shaded out the back and I added a fire to it. So this is a good atmosphere for something fanciful to happen. I'm going to start out with the flare technique. So first I'm going to start a new layer, and I'm going to make this whole layer black. So I'm going to make sure that my swatch is on black. I've clicked the paint bucket. I've got my new layer, and I'm just going to click the center of that so it blacks out the entire area. Then I'm going to go up to my top toolbar. I'm going to click filter, and in the drop down menu I'm going to click render, and then I'm going to go down to lens flare. Now there's different types of lens flares that you can do. This is a 50 to 300 millimeter zoom, so they're talking about the different types of lenses and the effects that would happen if you were aiming it directly at the sun. So this is a 50 to 300 millimeter zoom. This is a 35 millimeter prime lens. This is a 105 millimeter prime lens, and this is a movie prime. So depending on the type, one thing to keep in mind is don't focus on the color of the flare. You can change that later, but ultimately you want to look at the shape of it and what the flare is doing. Once I've chosen my lens flare, I can go up to the preview and I can left click and drag, and I can move that around to any area I want. If we go back to my original picture, you can see I am looking towards the middle, a little bit to the left of the page. So I'm going to want to set my lens flare up here. So in my preview, I'm going to drag the flare up to the middle and slightly to the left. Now that I've placed my flare, I can go in and can change my lenses again. I kind of like this white flare without a lot of reflections, but if you want more reflections, you can go to other lenses. So I'm going to stick with the 105 millimeter prime. The last thing I'm going to do is change the brightness. If I want more brightness, I can scroll this to the right and turn up the percentage, and that's going to make my brightness larger, or I can make it smaller by going to the left and making it a less percentage. So I like it right about there. So after I've gotten this all set up, I'm going to click OK. Once I've got my lens flare placed on the layer that I have just made, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the layer to flare layer. Once I have my flare layer made, I'm going to go up to this area that says normal. I'm going to left click on that and I'm going to go to screen. Screen allows the layers below it to show through. So now you can see that the flare is still there, but you can see the layer before it. If I don't like this setting, I can always left click, and as long as this is highlighted, I can use my arrow keys up and down and try different types of masks. So depending on what you need for the piece that you are working on, you can go through all these different filters that can allow the flare to do different things on your image. Now, if the flare isn't where you like it, you can always go over to the Move tool and select that, and then click on that layer and then move your flare over a little bit. Now, you'll notice that the flare only occupies the area that we set it up for originally. So you might have to hit Control T for transform, hold down Shift, grab the corner, and drag that out a little bit so it gets bigger, but you can also manipulate the area better. If I want to change the color of my flare, I can go to the top toolbar, I can click Image, go down to Adjustments, and then click on Hue and Saturation. Then I can just move these different sliders till I get the desired color. So if I want a more red hue, I can go to the right. If I want a more green hue, I can go to the left. I'm going to go for a more blue hue. And then the saturation is how brilliant the color is. So if I want it to look more blue, I can move it to the right. If I want it to look more white, I can move it to the left. And then the lightness is how blinding the light can be. So I want my settings to be right about there, and you can fiddle around with this and figure out what works best for you. After you're done, click OK. So now I've made my flare. For the sparkle technique, you're going to need to download a photo of either a firework or stars. So once you found the desired firework or stars picture, make sure you save it to the file you've created for this project. Once you've done that, you're going to go up to File, New. You're going to make the exact same desktop that you've used for the flare project. So I had that at 8.5 by 11, and all of the parameters are the same. So I'm going to click Create. So now I have the same desktop as I have for the flare project. I'm going to take the picture of stars, so I'm going to drag that into my desktop. And then I'm going to resize it so it fills the entire page. So I'm going to hold Shift, grab the bottom corner, and drag it out. Once I have it in the position that I want, I'm going to hit Enter to place it. Once I've made my stars layer, I'm going to go up to Select. I'm going to go down to Color Range, and I'm going to select the area that's black. What you'll notice is all the negative space is now selected. And if I want these stars to show through more, I can slide the fuzziness to the left, or I can slide the fuzziness to the right, and it'll isolate those even more. Once I've done that, I'm going to click OK. So all the area around the stars is now selected. So I'm going to go up to Select, and I'm going to go to Inverse. And that's going to make sure that only the stars are selected. Then I'm going to hit Control J to copy it to a new layer. Now, you can see all the outlines of the stars have been selected if I turn off the main layer. I'm going to left click on the layer that I've just made. I'm going to drag that into the project that I was working on, and then I'm going to drop it in the middle of my picture. And as you can see, now I have lovely little sparkles all over my picture. So if I want to change where these sparkles are, I can hit Control T, and I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to grab the bottom left corner, and I'm going to drag that out so that fills up this area. And then I'm going to move this up just a little bit. Once I'm done, I hit Enter to place. Now I have a magical scene in the woods. So this is the flare and sparkle techniques. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Do more, do better.